Okay, great. Well, Andrew, you make a great hype person. So we'll see how this goes. So my name is Pete Nelson, and this is me looking, I think, appropriately professional and raw for the presentation. I was telling Andrew earlier that this was the only headshot that I liked, and I had to beg to do some style photos at the end. I'm really happy that I get to use it. So I'm at ServeMinnesota, and that's a state commission for AmeriCorps, and I'll talk in just a second about what that means. I'm the director of research there, and we're located in downtown Minneapolis. And that salary range, I would say, is pretty on par too for a lot of other director type positions at other nonprofits. There's probably a little bit of range on the low and high end there, depending on the nonprofit, but that's probably a decent estimate. I've been with ServeMinnesota for 3 years. And that's my email address. So feel free if afterward, if you want to connect about anything related to AmeriCorps or board games or whatever, you just send me an email. So I want to provide a little bit of context before I actually talk about what I do. So I work for AmeriCorps essentially. So AmeriCorps, how we often describe it is domestic Peace Corps. There are people kind of come into AmeriCorps across the spectrum. So we have people who have done a gap year, so they're like 18 years old, and we have retirees. So the range is like 18 to 80 some years old. And we also have people in mid-career looking to do a shift, and they are getting engaged in a year of service. They get a very modest stipend and health benefits and, to implement the program or to do what they're going to do. But again, it's primarily service-based. And the programs really sort of are diverse as well. So our biggest programs in the state of Minnesota are education-focused. So we have Reading Corps and Math Corps, two huge reading and math support programs where the members are out. That's what we call them, by the way, members, so I'll use that term a few times. So we deliberately don't use the term volunteer. And so they're out doing like extra support, giving kids extra support in reading and math. There are people doing mentoring programs. You may have heard of College Possible, pretty well-known Minnesota AmeriCorps program. Habitat for Humanity also uses AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps members to help build homes or repair homes. And then there's also environmental programs like there's Green Corps and Conservation Corps. So there's all these folks engaging in good service. Or again, I think I mentioned there's 14. So there's 14 AmeriCorps programs in the state. So the commission historically, state commissions they kind of operate as a go-between for programs and the federal government. So someone would say, I have this program, and they would work with us to help refine that idea, and we would submit an application on their behalf to the federal government for funding. ServeMinnesota is pretty unique from the typical state commission. We're not housed in the State Department. We operate as a nonprofit, and this allows the organization to do things like hire me and work in research, which is very uncommon for commissions to have research and development staff. And it also allows ServeMinnesota to do a lot of fundraising as well. So we have 28 people at the organization, and that you can compare that to most commissions who have usually less than 5 people. That's they're really working in compliance and working as that go-between. And so what related to that, what makes us unique is that there's just a lot of AmeriCorps members here. So the Twin Cities is the top area in the nation for AmeriCorps. And as I'm looking at this photo right now, I'm realizing it looks a little bit more like megachurch and like sing and praise. But this is the Reading Corps. So that's just one program. Those are the Reading Corps AmeriCorps members taking their oath before they start the year. So that just gives you a sense for how many people are out in our state doing sort of working in an AmeriCorps role. We also are a little bit unique in that we have this like heavy focus on research and development. So there's a team of about 10 of us here that are working under the umbrella of R&D. And we also, as I mentioned, we do a lot of fundraising, so state money as well as private money, so in addition to those federal funds. And so federal funds drive about 70% of AmeriCorps funding, with the rest coming from state and private money. We also, rather than sort of waiting for program ideas to come to us, we are very much interested in identifying issue areas and then working with experts in our field or in the appropriate field, whether it's in the environment or recovery or education to help us think about how can we make a new program. So we take that sort of AmeriCorps knowledge out of the equation for people who have great ideas. So that's a bit on Serve Minnesota. So what do I do all day? About 30% of my time, I'm doing a lot of work with new and existing programming. So if somebody, let's say, Andrea decides that she's really passionate about an issue X, and she says, I have this great idea, I want to make this program. So she would sit down with me and some other folks, and we would start to tackle questions like, why do you want to make this program, Andrea? Like, what problem are you addressing? What demand is there? What are the AmeriCorps members going to do on a day-to-day basis? And can you connect what they do to empirical research? Can you say they're going to be doing these things, and they're going to be doing them because there's this research that says if they do these things, these important outcomes will improve. And then we also are really focused on data use. So we really push new programs and existing programs to leverage existing data in their field or collect their own data that they can use to guide the program development and evaluation. So just a couple examples. In the last 3 years or so, we've worked on a couple programs. A kindergarten readiness program, it's an academic support program for preschool children that targets their math and their literacy skills. So for something like that, we're looking at, what are you supposed to do with preschool kids? How do you get them ready for kindergarten? What are the key indicators? And once you know what you're going to focus on, what should these members be doing all day? They're there every day for a whole year, and so having a really clear scope and sequence for their activities, and then thinking about how we evaluate the program. And then in the same day, I might then switch. And at the time when we were developing these programs, I literally would walk from one meeting where we're talking about preschool kids to another meeting where we're talking about how we can support people in recovery for substance use disorder, which I know nothing about. So my background is in educational psychology, and I had been working prior to Serve Minnesota. I was working as an assistant professor, so sort of researching educational type things. So I don't know anything about recovery. It's not an area of expertise for me, but I do know, and I'm expected to know about what are these core features of good programming. So what we would do there is we partnered with people in the field in our state and outside of the state to consult with us about what a good program in recovery would look like. Okay, so I do that work. I also spend a lot of my time working with data files, which is, as you can see, maximum fun. It is a part of my job that I enjoy almost too much. We are really closely partnered in particular with educational programs, the Reading Corps and Math Corps programs that I mentioned. So what happens is that we get these files, these data files that have information on what the members are doing every day. So which kids they're working with, what they're doing with those kids. We sort of are measuring the academic progress of these kids on a weekly basis. And so what these files allow us to do is not just ask, does a program work, which is important, but it's like the most vanilla approach to evaluation is just to say, does this program work better than some control group? The files that we have allow us to start answering questions like, what about the program works best? Where are there areas for efficiency? So how can we make the program either financially more feasible, again, because we're using primarily taxpayers' dollars. So efficiency is something that I am very much interested in programming. Or how can we where are the gaps, and how can we sort of develop a better program? And so all of the data analysis fuels that. And in fact, that's what drives the other big chunk of what I do, which is writing and presenting. So I spend a lot of my time in my office looking at blank presentations and blank Word documents and trying to then look at this data file and think about what's the story here. And that story and how we present the information is another piece that I enjoy quite a lot. Is to take a look at, have raw data file and then try to find a way to make that consumable and understandable in sort of a powerful way for various stakeholders. So I'll present to usually once a year. We'll present to the state legislature. We'll go to sort of researchy type conferences because we try to keep our foot in the door in the academic world a little bit. Board meetings, funder meetings. I present a lot of content, and usually the underlying, so the foundation for that presentation is usually data-based, where we're talking about what we want to do with the program, how a program is doing, and those kinds of things. And similarly, we're writing a lot. So we're writing grants. We write annual evaluation reports for our programs, and then for some of our programs, and then we also, as I mentioned, one of the things that I really wanted when I took this position was the opportunity to still do the kinds of research type activities that I was doing in my previous role. So we're able to do that. We have these. What's really cool about it is that I'm getting a little bit off topic, but what's really cool about I think my position is that the research that we do has a potentially an immediate impact on programming. So something like Reading Corps, it's serving 30,000 kids a year. And we can make a minor program change that makes the program more efficient or more effective. If you save $1 per kid, say on average, that adds up over time. Or if we can increase the percentage of kids, for every 100 kids, we get an extra 10 to sort of be at grade level by the end of the year if we make this program change. At a given school that matters, but at scale, that's something that is pretty powerful. So that's 30, 30, 30. The other 10%, I do things that I do not enjoy, which is primarily meetings that aren't sort of action focused. So think people we're just going to talk about the status of a program or talk about an update on work. I have a few people who report to me. They are great people, very talented. I can't stand supervision, and some people it's the right fit for them. I think I care almost too much about my own interest in myself, but I don't know. I do enjoy it a little bit, but so that's the other 10% of my time. So I actually have a pretty flexible schedule. So I mean, I know that some of the people on this call, their calendars are just a freak show, but as you can see, I have a fair amount of flexibility in my time. A lot of the work that I do, is in my office. As I'm talking out loud, I'm realizing that sounds a little depressing, but I promise you, it's not depressing at all. My lights are on, but I have all this time to sort of work with data files to think about how programs can improve. To prep for different presentations and things like that, to write. So that's just a little bit about my schedule. So how does this job fit into the sort of bigger picture? The first piece is that there's sort of a core belief, I think, for myself and then also for our organization, is that we have so much that people are doing, primary academics, that they're learning about different things that work, whether it's education in your environment or whatever. But there are no incentives in place for those folks to get their work into practice. Primary incentives: publish, bring in grant money, don't get zero. You don't get your students to hate you and get zero ratings on your teacher reviews. But all of that information sort of lives behind this paywall of academic journals. That nobody reads besides the other people that work in that field. And then you have all these people in AmeriCorps who want to commit a year of service. And so if we're not finding a way to bridge what we know about what works with this incredible human resource, I mean, there's this huge missed opportunity. And so, Audrey Suker, who is the CEO at ServeMinnesota, really kind of believes in that mission. And that's really where my job fits, is trying to figure out to access that research literature and find a way for it to inform our applied programs. The other thing is that there's an increasingly intense focus on evidence. Historically, I would say AmeriCorps, when it started, sort of in the 90s, the focus was like to just reach as many people as you can, to get out. And so the way that you measure impact there is just, we served 10,000 kids. We met with 10,000 kids, and we spent this much time with them. But in the past, 5, 6 years, the focus has really been on what are you doing? How are you impacting what you say you're going to impact? So we need, people like me to help program people who, by and large, do not have a background in research or in evaluation, to help them understand the importance of evaluation, not just in demonstrating an impact, but also in sort of using evaluation as a way to improve the program. And yeah, so that's true at the federal level. The state, obviously, sort of state legislators in education, they care a lot about things like state tests and things like that. And then private funders also are really looking to know what does our investment get. So that's kind of where I fit in the organization. Why am I good at my job? I'm fairly good at identifying sort of the core features of a program. So when you talk to somebody about if they know a lot about a content area, for example, like they will talk to you forever about that. And about 20% of that is like core features. So I'm pretty good at sort of reading, 100-page documents or listening to people for a very long time and picking out what are sort of the levers of change for that idea or program. And that's really helpful for working with programs, so consulting with programs about how they can improve and helping them see those levers and not be so sort of in the weeds about all the other details. And it's also good for communication when we have to go explain a program to, say, the state legislature, and they give us 5 minutes to do a pitch for funding, and they tell us 30 seconds before that we've got 3 minutes, and then they cut us off at 1.5 minutes. Like you have to be able to sort of get the point across as fast as you can. I also so I have a background in research, but I've never self-described as an intellectual, and Andrea probably can attest to that to some extent. I just don't. I'm very interested in research and believe in sort of the power of rigorous evaluation work. But you hear people talk about it, and you can sort of they'll just sit and think and talk about it. And what if this happened? But they'll use a lot of qualifying statements like this may impact student achievement in these conditions. We didn't control for the caloric content of lunch, so now we're not sure. So I have that background enough to say or to keep people focused on action, right? So we're here, we've done this analysis, we have to move forward. We can't continue to meet and talk about what are the potential ways moving forward. We just got to do it, and we'll learn. I also really enjoy writing, and someone who works in this kind of position would have to do that. Adam Bells, in his presentation, I think I heard him say that you really have to be self-reinforcing there, because writing is tedious. It's not like, one of my favorite things to do that I don't get to do often anymore is mow the lawn. Like it's so rewarding. Like you just walk a line and you turn around and you just see this beautiful cut grass. Like you can just see that work. But when you're writing, you don't really get that kind of reinforcement. So just enjoying writing, self-reinforcing, write a good paragraph, pat yourself on the back, strap your sneakers on, go for a skyway walk, get some ice cream, come back and get back to it. And then prioritizing time and projects, I would say I am moderately good at that. But that's certainly something that you need to do in this kind of position. I do support all 14 programs to some extent, and trying to sort of think about which of those projects or which of the new development projects is really high priority, and how much time can I actually spend without taking away time from other projects is something that I continue to kind of work on, but it's a really important thing for the job. So I'm going to stop there. That's all the content that I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Man, thanks so much, Pete. That was fantastic. I'm going to open it up to the group rather than taking over. Any questions, small or large? Go ahead.
Hey, Pete, this is Michaela. A question for you on where do programs that you guys evaluate come from? Like, or is it like a problem and you guys come up with ideas, or is it somebody comes with a defined program already and then you guys kind of evaluate the impact?
Yeah, so the historical model would be, so there's probably an existing program or an existing organization that will say, we're doing this work, we really need sort of, we have this capacity gap, and we think AmeriCorps could fill this capacity gap to help us achieve our mission more efficiently or effectively. So they would come to us and submit an application. And so a lot of the programs were sort of born that way. A smaller group, especially in more recent years, has been sort of the opposite, where we've said, either we've said it or sort of a state legislator has said it, or some other big thinker or funder has said, I really care about this issue. So then we say, let's pull together a team, let's think about this issue, what would a good program look like? And then we've actually used a different organization that does all the sort of background AmeriCorps work, all the compliance, all the HR, and we leverage that infrastructure to take care of all of the AmeriCorps content, and we figure out how we can make that program as good as it possibly can be. So that's more driven by us as a commission and other sort of people in the state, rather than coming from an existing program. So a little bit of both.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions from the group?
Hey, Peter, this is Andy Guinnett.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, it just so happens that I'm a board member for Serve Wyoming.
Oh, great.
So yeah, it was kind of cool to kind of see what another state is doing on this. And maybe you said this or touched on it, but I didn't catch it. Or do you generally feel like in Minnesota, your AmeriCorps and the other agencies that Serve Minnesota works with, are they getting the personnel in that they need? Or are you having to turn folks away? Or do you feel like you're really having to push to try to get people to participate?
To participate as AmeriCorps members?
Yeah.
So recruitment is nationwide probably the biggest obstacle right now. Which is good. I mean, which is good and bad. I mean, the good thing is that there's a lot of jobs out there, and so when the economy wasn't doing well, sort of like 2009, 2008, there were a lot of AmeriCorps members. We were turning people away, and we started to sort of get into like what is the best AmeriCorps member, which is still relevant now, but a lot of the push now is we want to find people. And to become AmeriCorps members. And so we have a team of people working on that. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm sure, I mean, it sounds like maybe Wyoming is facing a similar issue, but that's definitely something that we're facing in Minnesota as well. In part because, again, we're just saturated. We also have a lot of programs and a lot of positions to fill. So yeah, same issue here.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm going to have to jump off and get to the next thing, but enjoyed listening to you talk about Serve Minnesota, really.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andy.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Any other last question? I know we're at time, so I want to kind of respect everyone having to hop to the rest of their day, and especially thank Pete for this. This is totally wonderful, very entertaining, very educational. So mega round of applause to you, Pete. I really appreciate it.